Hi, I'm Scott Bassett with Understanding Narcissists, and in this episode, I want to talk a bit about passive aggression or passive aggressive behavior in narcissists. Now, the first step to understanding this is that you probably hear a lot about passive aggressive behavior. It's not just a term used by doctors or in research or by clinicians. It's pretty much in the mainstream. But its depiction in the mainstream doesn't really apply to narcissists. It's not really accurate to how they use it. Passive aggression and passive aggressive behavior is really kind of a way of life for them. And so to really understand it, I want to go back to something I said in a previous video. I think it was the Origin of Narcissists video, where I talk about children who grow into narcissists being in an environment with emotional censorship, or a family that doesn't allow people to freely speak their mind or really express their emotions. So this is where passive-aggressive behavior comes from. And the idea is that in any environment, in any interaction with other people, so say in a family setting, such as this one, people get ticked off, or conflicts arise, people feel threatened, or people don't have their space, or whatever, disagreements. And what happens is, ideally, in a healthy environment, people are able to express themselves and work out their disputes through compromise and resolution, or what have you, by understanding each other, by having some kind of connection. But that requires that people communicate. They're able to mutually express their feelings and understand each other's feelings in order to work past them within a relationship. So naturally, the problem that arises here is that never happens. People in this kind of environment, narcissistic children aren't allowed to get angry, because getting angry for whatever reason, or expressing anger or rage even, is a negative attribute. It's a negative trait. It reflects poorly on them. So the natural choice in this environment, really the only choice, especially when there's an abusive parent around. Remember, the abusive parent of the narcissist is not a narcissist themselves, but they are abusive, or they have a hard edge, as I like to say, or they're cold and distant. Is that they can't express anger to this parent. It's dangerous. It's not something you can easily and readily do. But that rage, that anger has to come out in some way. It builds up. So the passive aggression is the way those things arise, how those things, or rather where those things are expressed, how they come out. Now, the difference between, say, aggression and passive aggression seems pretty simple when you look at the two terms, the difference between them. But to illustrate a little more clearly, I want to ask you what you think of when you think of aggression, anger, when someone's mad. It's very explicit, it's very external, it's directed outwardly. So in this aggressive situation, or aggressive behavior, it's explicitly expressed. They're clearly angry. They're being forward and upfront about it. They may not be telling you why they're angry in the first place, or why they're being aggressive, and they may not know themselves. But the aggression is explicit. They're clearly angry, and they're behaving in a certain way that allows them to vent this anger. It's important to keep in mind too that narcissists do have explicit aggression. Passive aggression is a way of life. It's required for them to survive, but that doesn't mean that they don't get explicitly angry or express outward aggression and physical aggression. They do so at different times, mostly when they can't control it anymore and they have to have an eruption of some kind in a big fight. But by and large, day to day, they're passively aggressive. Now, somebody's upset about something, and they express it explicitly, or they express it passively. To express it passively is to deny the aggression, not just to anybody who inquires about it, but to themselves, that they're angry. and doing something that allows them to relieve that aggression towards somebody by hurting them in an indirect way. Usually it's by doing something that they think, or at least they say, they did out of concern or to help somebody, that ends up hurting them. That's their favorite way because it's such an easy cover. So to take the example, if you're involved with a narcissist or you know a narcissist, you know that they're always doing things you don't want them to do. Whether organizing the house or usually has to do with messing around with your stuff or bringing up topics, sensitive topics in front of other people or embarrassing you in front of your friends in order to hurt you. Now, that's putting it lightly, by the way. If you do know a narcissist, you know that the way I just put it was not as heavy, not as damaging as it usually is. But you still get the point, I think. Those kinds of situations allow them to relieve a lot of aggression and exert control in a way that doesn't make them look angry or aggressive. In fact, they often do it like they're happy, giggling, elated. Now, elated even because they enjoy it so much. They derive so much joy from your pain and suffering, especially your emotional pain and suffering and your lack of control. So in that kind of environment, day to day, that is a mechanism they need to have in order to vent that rage that they otherwise wouldn't be able to get rid of. And so those things, those outlets need to be there to make you feel insecure and to empower them day to day. Now, the real appeal to passive aggression for narcissists, and keep in mind that it's not an intellectual thing. They may think about it to some extent, but they're not entirely aware of it themselves. It's more instinctual and an adaptation. They know that they can't be explicitly aggressive because it makes them look bad. Because anybody who's angry or aggressive, that's something they can't deny to other people through the illusion. It's too overt. It's too heavy-handed. So what they do is something more sophisticated. They start doing it when they're very young, usually to their parents and their siblings, that allows them to be aggressive without being labeled as such. But don't kid yourself, they're very aggressive and they're rage-ridden people, which I'll talk about probably more in different videos. Narcissists are full of rage. They're furious human beings. But they've got to find some way to relegate that to somebody else by kind of channeling all those negative emotions so that somebody else expresses them. That's kind of their ultimate goal. That's what they like to do. That's how they get it out there, so to speak. So the real appeal of passive-aggressive behavior is that it's all speculative. There will never be a situation, really, where you can sit down with them and say, hey, look, you're being passive-aggressive. You're trying to hurt me because you're upset about this other thing. They can always deny it because there's no way for you to prove it. It's not an empirical thing. And narcissists always sit in that intellectual, pseudo-intellectual, pseudo-logical area where they look like they're thinking rationally. They're always trying to look like they're thinking perfectly rationally. Everything's logical. They're putting it together in a very more than reasonable way, in that you're the opposite. You're not. You're getting emotional. But they're the ones the emotional, irrational ones. They're the ones who are engaging in all kinds of bizarre behaviors to get a response out of you. So, it's something you can't ever prove. It's totally speculative because it's all in their mind. And furthermore, they aren't really aware of it themselves. As I say, it's something they learned to do when they were very, very young as a way of life, a way of survival. It's an adaptation, like most of what they do. It looks like they try to make it appear like it's all intellectual, but it's really not. It's more of a gut instinct and a survival mechanism that aided them in the environment they grew up in their childhood and their upbringing. And so I think that's all I have to say about this subject, at least for right now. Like this video, share it with your friends, comment if you have any questions or anything else you'd like to see me do a video on, or any specific topic, or thanks for watching and have a wonderful day. Take care.